if you have a screen that goes very bright white, or if you have a screen that goes very dark, people can deal. Their eyes will adjust, or they'll just accept that. But if you have bad sound, people will leave. They'll turn off the movie. If they have to be adjusting the volume, if they have to adjust the volume of a video more than like 2 times, they're very likely to leave. If the sound is just like bad audio and they can't understand it, they won't follow what's going on. They'll leave. So even from that most basic perspective, just passable good audio is more important than passable good visuals, because people can forgive bad visuals, but they cannot and will not forgive bad sound, because bad sound hurts.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. Welcome, Benjamin. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me.
You are busy.
Yeah, well, I try to keep busy,
Yeah. So I love to start off these podcasts asking a question about if you have a memory, a childhood memory of a sound that moved you.
I was hoping you were going to do that because I heard it in the other episodes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I have a single specific memory, but I have kind of the path of it. So I have an older brother. I have 2 older siblings, but my older brother is an incredibly musical person. He's a pianist. He started playing piano at the age of 5, and I would have been, just born, like one or 2. And we had an upright piano and eventually got a baby grand. And my house growing up was constantly filled with music. And I look up to my brother so much because he's the one that got me into piano, and he was a guitarist, and we started this silly little band together. But I think that because of him, when I was very young, found this appreciation for the way that music can calm someone down or get them excited or even confuse them when you start playing jazz, which is what he does. And and I remember just very young these moments of watching him play and thinking to myself, man, I want to do that. And over time, with the combination of music and sound design and photography and writing and all of that coalesced into what I am now, which is I technically market myself as a filmmaker, but what I see myself as is just a storyteller through the medium of sound and visuals.
Okay. Well, that's a great definition. And definitely the sound portion of that is what we talk about
Absolutely.
Here all the time. So that's what I'm here for. Yeah. So what was your, so your family was musical. Is that the idea? Like not just your brother, but.
I would say that some of them are music adjacent, but my brother and I are the musical ones. So he is a jazz pianist. He plays for like events, and I am much more on the producing side. So I'll write and compose and produce. But the rest of my family are either like play an instrument in their pastime or don't at all.
Mm-hmm. So that's the music end of things. How did you get into the filmmaking? Because that's an entirely different level there.
Yeah. So my father, bless his heart, is not the best photographer, but he always had the best camera he could because he wanted to take the best photos of his family. And as soon as I could get my grubby little hands to fit around the camera, I was like, okay, I love this. I can capture moments in time and hold on to them forever. And as I got older, I was like, oh my God, this thing can do 24 pictures per second and then play them back. Whoa. And it just naturally evolved because I used to write these silly stories, and then I learned I could film them. And, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about this far more, but sound is an incredibly important part of filmmaking, more so in a lot of ways than the visuals. And that combined with my interest in music is what led me to say, you know what? I don't want to be just a music producer. I don't want to be just a writer or an actor. I want to make movies, and I want to do everything in that, both the visuals and the writing and the sound.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like the whole picture, picture that was in quotations, people, was, that's a big thing. I do want to get into how sound influences the filmmaking that you do specifically, but also I want to ask you, because you started your production company at 15.
So,
I mean, my God.
so I should clarify that legally, I did not start it at 15.
Okay. Yes.
I don't think I was allowed to start an LLC at 15. But organizationally, yes, I started it at 15 because I wanted to make movies with the people that I knew, and I wanted it to not be my name. I didn't want people to go see this movie on YouTube, short film, that 20 people had worked on, and the first thing that you see is, Benjamin Kapit. I wanted it to be an organization that people can all call their own. And so that's what I did. And we started with a different name, but eventually became what we are now, which is Second World, very much because I like the idea that film and music and really all art is inherently escapist. And so you're venturing from our world to this second world, and that's why I call it that. But yeah, I wanted someone who's not me to be able to say, yeah, I make movies as part of Second World, and not like, yeah, I make movies as part of Benjamin Kapit's production company.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure there were a lot of hardships and difficulties you had to come through being that young and starting a production company.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, what were some of those hurdles that you had to overcome?
So most of it, unfortunately, is the people aspect of it, the creative differences, the fact that I, at 15, didn't entirely know what I was doing. So, I could say, oh, these people made mistakes, but I of course made a ton of mistakes. I had issues with communication, just as most people do. I didn't know how to run a business yet because I had, again, started it very young. And I think that the hardest part for me was giving up elements of control as it became larger and more people were involved. And so to be able to bring a separate sound designer on and say, I trust you to bring my or the director's vision to life instead of sitting down and doing it myself. In fact, I had someone leave the company because and I'm going to sound kind of rude here, but they were being too slow with the things that they needed to do. And instead of having a conversation with them, I just did it myself. And that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I should have had a conversation with them. But it's always been and especially as someone on the autism spectrum who struggles with communication, that's always been the issue for me is setting aside the ambition of we need to get this done to focus on the more human aspect and element of it.
Yeah. And you raised the autism point. I'm curious as to where you are on the spectrum there.
About 2 miles down, take a left. No, I'm kidding.
Could be.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to describe. Obviously, a lot of people don't believe that I am because as someone just growing up autistic, I learned to mask. And so I to a lot of people, don't seem it. But I definitely struggle with the social elements of the world. I struggle with communication and more so when I was younger, but I can struggle with seeing, other people's perspectives as legitimate. I'm much better about that now at the ripe old age of 24. But when I was, 16 or 17, that was really hard for me. But there is a plus side to it. And it's that I am able to, the old stereotype of autistic people love puzzles. That is very true for me. And I see a lot of the work that I do as a puzzle. And so, despite the shortcomings of it, I am able to utilize my whatever's going on in my brain to actually end up helping the work that I do.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought of it as a superpower a little bit.
It's very much a double-sided coin.
Yes. Yeah, I imagine you've had to cope a lot.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that already.
I mean,
yeah.
it's interesting. just speaking of sound, I am able to, hear a song and be able to tell you what instrument everything is and some of the effects they might have used it. And yet at the same time, if I am in a room and there's a quiet buzzing noise somewhere, I will go insane until I have figured out what it is and how to turn it off.
Oh yeah, actually I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's an autism thing or just a sensitivity to sound thing. I don't know.
It's both, but it is incredibly common in people on the spectrum. I mean, it's the same thing.
Sure.
If there's a noise that's too loud, I can sometimes go fully nonverbal. Like I'll stop talking because the sound freaked me out so much that now I can't speak.
I don't blame you for that at all. Yeah, that can be really disconcerting. That's actually a biological thing for human beings, I would imagine. It's just heightened maybe in your case.
I think it's heightened, and the fact that that my reaction to it, other than just being like, oof, that was loud, I'll go into kind of a panic. It's why I have to wear earplugs every time I go to a concert. That and, safety.
I get it. But that's actually really good for you. Yeah. So you will have your hearing when you're, 50.
That's my hope, especially as someone who wants to do music. The earplugs I use, actually, shout out to Loop earplugs. They're phenomenal. They're made for musicians. But
I've heard of them, yeah.
They're so nice, and I bring them everywhere with me.
Yeah, well, that's great to know. So I imagine that a lot of your appreciation of sound, I guess, comes through in what you do. And how do you think that your upbringing, your background, all of this helped you appreciate the sound that you're creating even more?
That's a very good question. And there are two ways for me to attack it, because there's the music side of it and there's the sound design side of it. And I do a bit of both. When it comes to music, I think it's what I was talking about with my brother. Both of my parents were always very encouraging with our pursuit of art. They paid for piano lessons and guitar lessons and vocal lessons for me. And when I was very young, they bought me Logic, the digital audio app. And
sure, parent help is,
oh my God,
I can't
so much.
Understate that. It's just so. Yeah, my parents are both musical too, and my sister and I ended up being very musical as well. Both of us are singers. My sister plays guitar and piano, and my dad plays piano and guitar. My mom sings, and so they were very encouraging. And I think that has a lot to do with how I ended up, because it's way easier to do what you love to do if you're being encouraged to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would not be where I am and able to do what I can today if it weren't for not only their encouragement and parental support, but also their financial support. I was very lucky in that they were able to, when I was younger, get me things that helped me start out. And now I'm, very lucky that I'm able to afford to cover my own toys most of the time, but when I was younger, having them to give me that start was, indescribably helpful.
Definitely, yeah. So when it comes to the sound design, how do you operate there?
So that's a little more of kind of my own thing. I have always just been fascinated by the work in movies, because that one comes much more from just watching movies growing up. And the thing that really gets me is the ability to create a sound for something that's not real. That's what I think got me interested in it in the first place, is how do you approach making a sound for someone, shooting magic out of their wand? Because that's not a real thing. So what do you do for it? Do you go the more realistic element, or do you head towards complete synthesis? And I was just fascinated by pressing random buttons on a computer and seeing what sounds they would make. And over time, that's gotten me into approaching sound design with this very creative and what's the word I'm looking for? I almost think spontaneous is the word I'm looking for. I try not to think about it too much, and just, if it sounds right, it sounds right. And just growing up watching these movies and listening to audiobooks where they did sound design, and just being like, wow, that's pretty cool. I want to do that.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I am a science fiction fantasy geek from way back.
Oh my God, me too. Absolutely. I mean, God, the earliest, sci-fi-ish movie that I can really remember watching in a theater specifically, because, the sound system's in there, is Pacific Rim.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
A phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
And the sound that they make, not just for the giant monsters, but also for the robots, are incredible. And they immerse you in this world in a way that you really feel like, you're about to get stepped on by a giant lizard. And,
oh, yeah. There's a lot of history there, too, right? Because you have the giant robots from Gundam. Like, that's all, anime stuff, right? And then, of course, like, the Godzilla movies and all of those are, like, from the 50s. So, like, that's, And it all, it's amazing how they've updated them.
It's incredible. And it all leads to these movies that, stepping out of the sound for a second to the CGI, too. The CGI in those movies is incredible. And it's kind of gone downhill since then. But like when you look at that movie, both with the CGI and the sound design, it's this perfect peak of pulling you into this world, immersing you into false reality. And that's, when it comes to sound design, that is my goal. That's what I want to do. I want to help people forget that what they're watching isn't real.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I totally know what you mean about the CGI, because I think we started trying to make it too hyper realistic.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem, because we have this uncanny valley thing going on. And if it's too perfect, it just seems off.
Absolutely.
And it's easier to CGI something, say, for Pacific Rim, because that's stuff that never existed, that you're now making exist.
Yep.
So you can suspend your disbelief, as opposed to trying to make it super hyper realistic, like the Jungle Book, like Disney's remake of the Jungle Book. Like that was
also just like doesn't need to exist. We don't need to make a live action remake of every movie that was animated ever. But that's I
totally agree with you. Yes, I am like, yeah. Actually, the one that I did like was the Cinderella version that they did, because it was slightly different.
I actually have not seen that, so I will take your word on it.
I would suggest it. It's actually, I actually appreciated it for what it was. They're all entertaining, but I just found that one actually said something more, as opposed to just repeating what had already been out there. So to me, if you're going to make a movie, and you probably as a filmmaker think about this all the time, if you're going to make a movie, it has to say something different than what has already been put out there. And that's not to say that you have to be, hyper different, like it has to be completely out there and something completely new, but it can pull from what came before, but it has to say something different.
I absolutely agree. And I teach film sometimes, and what I always say to my students is, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Basically every story boiled down to its core has been told by now.
There's archetypes. Yeah,
exactly. But what makes a movie original to me isn't a new story or a new story, arc, but is watching something that, speaking to the royal you, is unequivocally yours. Something that is your voice and your story, and isn't just another How to Train Your Dragon movie by the same director, directed like a decade after the first one came out. We don't need it.
Yes. Oh, you're preaching to the choir here. I loved that movie when it came out. I do not need a live action version.
The animated
where they're
version
still
is fine.
CGIing.
Yeah.
They're still CGIing the dragon. Like, what the?
Exactly. I'm like,
nothing's different.
We have the movie already. From what I've seen from the trailer, it is like a shot for shot remake, basically.
Yes.
I'm like, let a fan do this. Don't put $200 million into this. Make an original story. You've already told this one. Do another one. Do a live action How to Train Your Dragon movie that's a new story in that universe. But don't just anyway. You know what I'm
totally
saying.
Agree. I get it. I agree with you entirely. So yeah, we're definitely on the same wavelength here. Yeah. But you compose and you do your sound design. So
yes.
What's the how does that work? How does that work better for you being able to do the music composition as well as the sound design?
So I'm not sure that it works better or worse than the other way necessarily. I do sometimes have other people come on and do the sound design. It's definitely not something that I'm like, I have to do it. It has to be me. But it's two things. One, it's ease. I'm right here already. I have all of the materials. I might as well. And two, it's a lot of the work that I do is for my own projects. And if I have a client gig or I'm bringing people onto a film that I'm working on, I can be like, hey, do you guys want to do this for money? But if it's just something that I self-financed for fun, I can't pay anyone because I'm not making money on it. And I put in $200 for food and that's it because it was a one-day shoot. And so unless I have a good friend who's a sound design major, graduated for sound design in games, and he'll help me sometimes, but he's got other stuff going on, so I'll often do it myself. The composing thing is more of an, if anyone tries to compose for my movies, I'll fight them kind of thing. I am
okay. That's your love. That's what you really want to do.
Well, so because I'll walk onto set as the director with themes for the film already written, because I believe that one of my, as I spoke about this earlier, one of my shortcomings is communication. And if I can't get an idea out verbally to an actor or the feeling of a scene to an actor, I bet I can do it with music. So I'll write pieces before I even get on set that I can then hand to the actor and say, this is how this scene should feel. And then we'll be able to discuss it further.
Oh my goodness. I so appreciate that. I got to tell you, as a voice actor, if I hear the music that's going behind the piece that I'm working on first, if I know what that emotional context is supposed to be, oh my God, does it make my job easier?
Well, to me as an actor and a musician, it's a way of communicating that. You're going back to my brother when we had the two pianos, the upright and the baby grand, we could sit down and say, okay, we're in, F major. And he and I could just speak to each other through the piano. And it's something that to me, when I can't communicate something verbally, I have to fall back on. But it's also that audio is inherently, or isn't inherently psychological, but inherently has psychological effects on people. Like you were talking about before, the loud noise, our first thought is danger. Or strings, people will often describe as soft and calming. And I use that to my advantage. I don't know if I have am I allowed to play something? Just real quick?
Go ahead.
So
sure,
I think I have a piano. Yeah. So I have a project that I did many years ago in college. It's not very good, but it was this.
Let us be the judge of that.
Well, let me rephrase. It's not as good as I could do today. Let's just say that.
Okay.
And it was shot by college students. But there's the main theme of it is called the Berkshire theme, because I went to school in the Berkshires, and the main theme of it is, in my opinion, the catchiest thing I've ever written. To the point that one person could hum the first three notes of it and everyone else on set would join. But I wrote it before we got to set, before we got to school, before we started. And I'll play it real quick. It's very simple, just a few notes, but it communicates the overall feeling of the show, how I want people to come away from it. And so I'll play it real quick and then talk about the emotion behind it. It's just this very simple. And I have more complicated versions that are in the score because it's out on Spotify and it has all the strings and all of the fun little ear candy and all of that fun stuff. But can I tell the story of how I came up with the melody? Because it's
please do, yeah.
So I'm sitting in my high school recording studio. We had this little recording studio in the band room. And after hours, no one was there, so I'd sometimes go there to work. So I'm sitting there, and I'm writing a paper on game theory for one of my classes, and I am so bored. Game theory was the class I did the worst in.
It's amazing what boredom does for our creativity,
right?
Isn't it?
And so the piano little MIDI keyboard that's next to me is connected to the computer, and it has an electric piano patch loaded up. And I start just absentmindedly doing this with my left hand. Just without really thinking. And then an ex of mine and I did this little challenge where she gave me a phrase and I gave her a phrase, and she had to paint something based off of what I said, and I had to write music based off of what she said. And what I did was this. And it disappeared into the void for a little while, and then as I was writing the script for the show Wonder Over that's the theme to, and it just randomly started playing, and I was like, oh, that perfect right there. And you'll have to tell me if you agree with this or not, and if you got it from it, but it feels like this perfect blend of innocent joy and bittersweet ending. Like,
yeah, I would agree with that. It sounds almost like a journey too.
Yeah,
like there's a journey in there,
and that's what the show is. It's this starting off, everything seems fine, and slowly you realize that it's not fine, but it's not bad, and that's just life. And I was able to on set communicate that to my actors with the score and with the theme, and just saying, "Do you hear how this music sounds? Do you hear how it makes you feel? That's where we're going with this."
I love it. Yeah. And that's a really great way to use music to your advantage as far as, giving people instructions that they will instantly get. I think that's super important. And yeah, it's amazing how few people actually think that sound will do that, but that's what it's made for.
Oh yeah. Well, in film, it's vital doesn't begin to describe it. In large part because people can accept bad visuals. One of the most famous movies of all time that in a lot of ways helped define the found footage genre is the Blair Witch Project.
Oh yeah.
And it looks awful. And that works because that's what it's meant to do. And if you have a screen that goes very bright white, or if you have a screen that goes very dark, people can deal. Their eyes will adjust, or they'll just accept that. But if you have bad sound, people will leave. They'll turn off the movie. If they have to be adjusting the volume, if they have to adjust the volume of a video more than like 2 times, they're very likely to leave. If the sound is just like bad audio and they can't understand it, they won't follow what's going on. They'll leave. So even from that most basic perspective, just passable good audio is more important than passable good visuals, because people can forgive bad visuals, but they cannot and will not forgive bad sound, because bad sound hurts.
Yes, so true.
Which is
and
very important.
Speaking of, yeah, definitely. Speaking of that, though, what are your challenges when you're on set and getting audio? Because dialogue is tough, right?
So many. I mean, so one of the biggest problems is nobody that I know wants to be a boom op.
It's a tough job.
Not even just in the sense of like they won't do it, because I have people that will, but none of them want to go into it professionally. Meaning that I don't have any experts. I have one of my best friends, a guy named Jack, who I've been working with for 7, 8, 9 years now, is my go-to director of photography on basically everything. And one of the things he wants to do is be a director of photography, so he's really good at it. Nico, the other sound designer that I know, wants to go into sound design, so he's really good at it. But no one that I know wants to be a boom operator. So one of the biggest challenges on set is getting someone to do the job properly, to point the microphone where it needs to go, to keep it the right distance, to keep their eye on the frame line. They don't want to get it in the shot, so they'll just hold it up really high. But that's a problem, because you want to get the mic as close as possible. And then the other challenge with on-set audio, other than the obvious of if you're filming in a place that a plane is flying over or that has a lot of traffic, you're going to have to deal with that. But one of the other really big problems with it is that good high quality sound gear is really expensive. And I really like my fun, expensive toys, but unfortunately I spend most of the money on cameras. So I don't have the best audio gear. I have I think it's like a Rode NT-G3 or 4, and running into a Tascam Portacapture X6 with I have a Rode Blimp when I need it. And that's it. That's my entire audio setup. And, people on these film sets, they're coming in there with, PreSonus recorders and Sennheiser $10,000 microphones. And I'm like, I can't compete with that.
The Sennheiser 416, that is the usual boom mic, is about $1,200, just so that you know.
But that's on the low end. And that's specifically better for outside, because inside, when you have more reverberation, you want a shorter shotgun tube because you don't want as much interference. And so I don't even remember what the Sennheiser one is for that, but I think it's like $2,500.
They have a bunch of them.
And they get very expensive. And so I have to, a lot of what I do other than sound design in post is I'll do a lot of audio mixing and fix-ups, which can be tedious. And then we also have to do a lot of ADR for our films.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I'll define for anyone who doesn't know what it is.
Sure, please.
ADR stands for automated dialogue replacement. Basically, we get mediocre sound on set. So we'll isolate it as best we can. We'll have the actor come back in and say the lines the exact same way they did on set into the same or a similar microphone, but in a quiet room. And then we'll mix it to sound like it was on set. We'll add the sound effects back in. We have a scene that we did that was entirely ADR'd on a boat that was like a speedboat that was going at like 30 miles an hour. And so you could barely even hear them on set with a boom microphone. So they had to do it mostly to like their mouth moving. And that was
wow.
That was quite the challenge for us.
That's wild. Yeah.
It was wild.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.